My brother mocked my hard work in front of his friends, claiming I would always be the poor one. So I cut him off completely and let him drown in his own debt. Growing up, my older brother Patrick and I were inseparable. We were those siblings who shared everything: toys, inside jokes, dreams for the future. I was the quiet, steady one. He was the bold, confident one. If you'd told me back then that we'd end up here, estranged and barely speaking, I wouldn't have believed you. But looking back now, I realize there were always little cracks in our relationship. Tiny things I brushed off. A snide comment here, a backhanded compliment there. I never thought they meant anything serious. Until last month, when Patrick humiliated me in front of his friends. That was the night everything changed. Let me back up a bit. I run a small landscaping business, nothing fancy but it's mine. I started it from scratch 5 years ago after leaving a soul-sucking corporate job. It's hard work, but I love it. There's something deeply satisfying about turning a scrappy patch of land into someone's dream garden. It's not glamorous, but I sleep well at night knowing I've built something real, something honest. Patrick, on the other hand, took a very different path. He's always been the flashy one, the one who loves to talk about his high-powered finance job, his luxury apartment, his trips to Cabo. And hey, good for him. I've never envied his lifestyle. I'm happy with my simpler one. Or at least I was happy until Patrick made me feel like I should be ashamed of it. The incident happened at a family dinner. It was one of those rare evenings where everyone, me, Patrick, our mom Pamela, and a few of Patrick's friends, was gathered at Mom's house. Patrick had invited his friends along, which wasn't unusual. He loved showing off. They were the type of people who wore loafers with no socks and used words like synergy unironically. I didn't exactly fit in with them, but I wasn't going to make a scene. I just wanted to enjoy the night with Mom and go home. The first red flag came early in the evening. Patrick introduced me to his friends with this weird, joking tone. This is my little brother, Herbert. He's, well, let's just say he's more of a hands-on type. They all laughed like he'd said something hilarious, but I just smiled tightly. Whatever. I've learned to let those little digs slide. But as the night went on, Patrick's comments got nastier. So Herbert, he said loudly, cutting me off mid-conversation, how's the landscaping business? Still breaking your back for peanuts? His friends chuckled, and one of them added, man, I could never do manual labor. My back would give out in a week. I tried to brush it off, telling myself they didn't mean any harm. It's going well, I said calmly. Just signed a big contract with a new client. Patrick raised an eyebrow. Oh yeah? What is it this time? Another suburban lawn makeover? Or are you finally tackling something serious? The room laughed again. My stomach twisted, but I forced a smile. It's actually a corporate campus redesign. Pretty big deal for me. Patrick's face shifted for just a second. Surprise, maybe. But then he smirked and said, well, let's hope they pay you on time. I hear small businesses are always cash-strapped. At this point, I was gripping my fork so tightly my knuckles turned white. But I stayed quiet. What was the point of arguing? Things really escalated when dessert came out. Patrick, clearly enjoying the spotlight, decided it was time to tell a little story. You know, he said, gesturing toward me with his wine glass, Herbert once told me he wanted to be a millionaire by 30. Remember that, bro? I froze. I had said that when I was 16. It was a stupid dream from a lifetime ago, and he knew it. Well, Patrick continued, laughing. I guess life had other plans, huh? But hey, at least you're doing what you love, right? His friends roared with laughter. One of them slapped Patrick on the back and said, you're brutal, man? I looked at Mom, hoping she'd step in, but she just gave me this helpless, awkward smile. Like she didn't want to take sides. Like she didn't want to ruin the vibe. That's when Patrick hit me with the final blow. You know, some people are just destined to be the poor one in the family, he said, grinning. It's nothing to be ashamed of, Herbert. Someone's got to balance out the scales, right? I wish I could tell you I stood up and gave an epic speech about hard work and dignity. But I didn't. I just sat there, feeling my face burn, while everyone laughed. I felt like a fool. Like a charity case. After a minute, I stood up, mumbled something about needing to head home early, and left. I didn't even say goodbye to Mom. I just got in my truck and drove. The whole way home, my mind was racing. Was this who Patrick had always been? Had I just been blind to it? Or had success turned him into this arrogant, condescending jerk? By the time I got home, I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. Done trying to impress him. Done pretending we had some great brotherly bond. Done letting him walk all over me. That was the night I made a decision. I was going to cut Patrick out of my life. No big announcement, no dramatic confrontation. Just silence. If he couldn't respect me, he didn't deserve my time or energy. What I didn't realize then was just how much Patrick needed me, and how quickly he'd come to regret burning that bridge. Update. After that family dinner, I went completely radio silent on Patrick. No texts, no calls, no visits to mom's house when I knew he'd be there. It wasn't like I sent him a dramatic "we're done" message. I just stopped engaging. At first, I thought he wouldn't even notice. Patrick's the type who's always surrounded by people. Friends, coworkers, girlfriends of the month. Why would he care if his loser brother stopped talking to him? But he noticed. Oh, he definitely noticed. The first week, he sent a few texts. "Hey, you good? Haven't heard from you. Are you seriously mad about that dinner? Don't be such a baby." I ignored them. I figured he'd get bored and move on. But instead, the messages kept coming, and they got nastier. "Wow, so this is how you're gonna be? Pathetic. You know, if you can't handle some friendly teasing, maybe you're not cut out for the real world." By week 3, the text shifted from insults to full-on guilt trips. "Mom's upset you're being so distant. She doesn't deserve this. You're acting like a selfish, ungrateful brat. I've done more for you than you even realize." The funny thing? Patrick had never done more for me. If anything, I'd spent years trying to keep the peace between us, bending over backward to make him feel good about himself. Now that I wasn't playing along, he was panicking. At the same time, something strange started happening. I was doing well. Like, really well. After that dinner, I threw myself into my work with a kind of focus I hadn't felt in years. I picked up 3 new clients, including a corporate campus redesign that Patrick had mocked me about. It was my biggest project to date, and when I finished it, the company sent me a handwritten thank you note and a bonus check. I used that money to buy a new truck, the same one Patrick had mocked me for not being able to afford. And I'll be honest, the first time I drove it, I thought about sending him a picture just to rub it in his face. But then I realized, I didn't care anymore. He wasn't worth the energy. That's when Mom called. "Herbert, you need to talk to Patrick," she said, her voice heavy with that specific tone of motherly guilt. "Why? What's going on?" I asked, even though I already knew this wasn't about me. He's having some financial trouble. He won't admit it, but I can tell. He's behind on his rent, and he had to sell his car." I leaned against the kitchen counter, my jaw tightening. Patrick, the golden boy of the family, was struggling? The same Patrick who'd spent years rubbing his success in my face? I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a flicker of vindication. "What does that have to do with me?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. Mom hesitated. "You're doing well now, right? Maybe you could help him out? Just a little? He's your brother, Herbert." There it was, the expectation. The same old story. Patrick makes a mess and everyone else cleans it up. "I'm not giving him money, Mom," I said firmly. "He doesn't respect me and he's never cared about my life. Why should I bail him out?" "Because he's family," she said softly. "And family helps each other." I wanted to scream. Instead, I just said, "He can figure it out. He always does." Then I hung up before she could argue. That's when things really escalated. A week later, Patrick showed up at my office. Unannounced. I was in the middle of meeting with a client when my assistant poked her head in and said, "There's a guy here to see you. Says he's your brother?" My heart sank. I told her to give me 5 minutes to wrap up, but Patrick barged in anyway, ignoring her protests. "Herbert, we need to talk," he said, loud enough for everyone in the office to hear. I was mortified. I quickly apologized to my client and ushered Patrick into the hallway. "What the hell are you doing?" I hissed. Patrick crossed his arms, looking more disheveled than I'd ever seen him. His usual polished, put-together vibe was gone. His shirt was wrinkled, and his hair looked like it hadn't seen gel in weeks. "You're seriously gonna ignore me when I'm going through this?" he snapped. "Do you have any idea what I'm dealing with right now?" "I don't," I said coolly, "because you've never bothered to tell me. And barging into my office isn't the way to fix that." He scoffed. "Oh, please. Like you're so busy with your little landscaping business. Don't act like you're too good to help your own brother." I felt my temper flare, but I kept my voice steady. "I'm not too good, Patrick. I'm just tired of being treated like I don't matter to you. If you're here to apologize, we can talk. But if you're here to guilt me into something, you can leave." Patrick stared at me like I'd just slapped him. For a moment, he looked lost. But then his face hardened. "Fine," he said. "If you want to play the self-righteous card, go ahead. Just don't come crying to me when you need help someday." And with that, he stormed out. Here's where it gets wild. A few days later, I got a call from one of Patrick's friends, the same guy who'd laughed at his poor one in the family joke at dinner. Let's call him Steven. "Hey, Herbert," Steven said, his voice awkward. I heard about what's been going on with Patrick. He mentioned you two aren't speaking." "Yeah," I said cautiously. "Why?" "Well, I don't know if he's told you, but he's in pretty deep with some bad debt. Like, credit cards, payday loans, the works. He's been trying to keep it quiet, but it's starting to catch up with him. I just thought you should know." I wasn't sure how to respond. Why was Steven telling me this? Was he trying to guilt me too? Or was he genuinely concerned? Thanks for letting me know, I said finally. But Patrick's problems aren't mine to solve. Steven sighed. Yeah, I figured you'd say that. Just keep an eye on him, okay? He's not in a great place right now. I hung up, my mind racing. What was Patrick really dealing with? And how much worse was this going to get? Final update. Patrick was always the guy who landed on his feet, no matter how reckless or careless he was. Growing up, he could talk his way out of trouble, charm teachers into giving him extensions, and somehow always find someone to bail him out. He used to joke, "I've got 9 lives." And honestly, I think he believed it. But this time, I wasn't going to be his safety net. And for the first time in his life, Patrick was about to find out what it was like to face the consequences, alone. It started with a weird phone call from my mom. It was about 2 weeks after Patrick stormed into my office. I hadn't heard from him since, and honestly, I hoped, he'd finally taken the hint and backed off. But then my mom called, her voice tight with worry. "Herbert, Patrick's been acting strange," she said. "How do you mean?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "He's been calling me at all hours, asking for money. He even suggested selling some of my jewelry to help him. I told him no, of course, but he's been so desperate and angry. He's not himself." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Mom, this isn't your problem to fix." "I know," she said quietly. "But he's my son. I can't just sit back and watch him fall apart." I wanted to tell her that she could. That sometimes, falling apart is what people need to do in order to grow. But I knew she wouldn't hear it. Patrick had always been her golden boy, no matter how much trouble he caused. And while I resented that growing up, I also understood it now. She loved him, flaws and all. Still, I refused to step in. I wasn't going to play the role of savior anymore. Not after everything he'd done. Then Patrick hit a new low. A few days later, I was unloading supplies from my truck when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Patrick. "Herbert, we need to talk, please." It wasn't his usual tone. No sarcasm, no guilt trips. Just 2 words that felt heavier than they should. Against my better judgment, I replied. "What's going on?" He responded almost instantly. "I need help." Part of me wanted to ignore him. To let him deal with his mess alone, like I'd promised myself I would. But another part of me, the part that still cared, despite everything, needed to know what was happening. So I called him. His voice was a mix of anger and exhaustion when he answered. "I'm screwed, Herbert. I've got creditors breathing down my neck, I'm months behind on rent, and I might lose my apartment. I've got nowhere else to turn." I stayed silent, letting his words sink in. Patrick, the guy who always acted like he had everything figured out, was finally admitting he didn't. And while a small, petty part of me wanted to say "I told you so," I also felt a pang of something else. Pity, maybe? Or disappointment. "What do you want me to do about it?" I asked. "I need a loan," he said bluntly. "Just enough to get me back on my feet. I'll pay you back as soon as I can." I almost laughed. "Patrick, you've spent years looking down on me, mocking my business, my hard work, and now you're asking me for money?" There was a long pause. "I'm desperate, Herbert," he said finally. "I don't know what else to do." It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever gotten from him. But it wasn't enough. "I'm sorry, Patrick," I said, "but I can't help you. Not this time." He didn't yell or argue like I expected. Instead, he just said, "Fine," and hung up. And for a moment, I wondered if I'd done the right thing. The fallout was messy. The next time I saw Patrick was at Mom's house. She'd invited me over for dinner, and while she hadn't said he'd be there, I wasn't surprised to find him sitting at the table when I arrived. He looked terrible. Like he hadn't slept in days. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by something I couldn't quite place. Fear, maybe? Dinner started off awkwardly enough, with Mom trying to fill the silence with small talk. But it didn't take long for Patrick to snap. "So Herbert," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "How's the landscaping empire? Still raking in the big bucks?" I set my fork down, meeting his gaze. "It's going well, thanks for asking." He laughed bitterly. "Must be nice. Some of us aren't so lucky." "Patrick," Mom said softly, placing a hand on his arm. "Don't start." "No, it's fine," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I get it. Patrick's upset because I wouldn't bail him out. But here's the thing, this isn't about luck, it's about choices. And you've made a lot of bad ones." The room went silent. Patrick's face turned red, and for a moment, I thought he might explode. But instead, he just pushed his chair back and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him. That was the last time I saw Patrick. At least, in person. Over the next few months, I heard bits and pieces about him through Mom. He'd moved out of his apartment, sold most of his belongings, and was crashing on a friend's couch. His fancy job? Gone. His social circle? Disappeared. It was like his entire life had crumbled overnight. And while part of me felt bad for him, I also knew it wasn't my responsibility to fix. Patrick had spent years tearing me down, mocking my hard work, and acting like he was invincible. Now, he was finally facing the reality of his own actions. The resolution came in an unexpected way. One day, out of the blue, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Patrick. I almost didn't open it, expecting it to be another plea for money or a half-hearted apology. But when I finally unfolded the paper, I was surprised by what I read. "Herbert, I don't know if you'll even read this, but I need to say it anyway. I'm sorry. For everything. For the way I treated you, for the things I said, for thinking I was better than you. I was wrong. You've always been the better man, and I see that now. Watching you build your life from the ground up, while I let mine fall apart, has been humbling. I don't expect you to forgive me, and I don't blame you for cutting me off. But I wanted you to know that I'm trying to change. Thank you for standing your ground. It was the wake-up call I needed. Patrick." I read the letter twice, then folded it carefully and tucked it back into the envelope. I wasn't sure what to do with it, or how to feel about it. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like Patrick might actually be capable of change. And while I wasn't ready to let him back into my life just yet, I also knew this wasn't the end of the story. Maybe, just maybe, we'd find our way back to being brothers again.